that story still doesn't resonate well for me. But at the same time, while it doesn't resonate well, it does at the same time, because there could have never been a better use case that proved how well the technology worked to get a consumer on the phone while they were in that middle of that shopping experience. And as creepy as it was, we did identify the right individual with the right phone number, with the right garage data, with exactly what she was looking at from a BDP perspective. So it was a really, really expensive use case. Not one that I ever want to repeat.
Don't want to repeat that one.
But as bad as it was kind of a good thing.
Welcome to Facts Not Feelings, where technology meets the road, data drives every decision, and every consumer interaction is an opportunity for optimization. I'm your host, Brooke Furniss, and today we're accelerating into the future of automotive retail. We're exploring the intersection of data and technology. Diving into these tools are not just changing, but fundamentally revolutionizing the dealer-consumer relationship. From identifying anonymous website visitors to transforming data into actionable insights, we'll cover it all. Joining us on this journey is a master navigator in the field, Greg Ashe, the founder and CTO of M1 Data and Analytics. Greg, I am so excited to finally you and I to connect and do this show. Like, I know it's been a little bit in the making. I think the first time I met, I was like, man, I've got to get him on the show. He is a very smart individual. So I'm super, super stoked to have you on the show today.
Couldn't be happier to be here. It's probably about 5 months in the making, partially my fault more than yours, but happy to finally be here.
Oh, I'm so stoked. And I'm excited for the audience, because if you all don't know Gregory, you don't know M1 Data and Analytics, you're in for a treat today, because he's incredibly smart, but what your tool does and what we're talking about today is something that I don't think a lot of people are thinking about, short of the people that are probably in your office right now. There's very few people that are thinking this way. So let's just dive straight into this right now about the specifics of how technology is shaping the dealer-consumer relationship. And I'm curious if you can go in and discuss the kind of technology that's currently available for dealerships to identify and understand their anonymous website visitors.
So there's probably about 4 different technologies, to be blunt about it. You have our version of web de-anonymization, which we have a utility patent on. It's a cookieless technology, purely by accident, to be completely honest with you. You have your more traditional, I would say slightly outdated reverse IP targeting. Then you have cookie matching. And really the fourth one is universal ID, which is essentially the replacement per se of cookies, as deprecation occurs if Google actually pulls the trigger next March. But they'll most likely kick the can down the road. Actually, there is a fifth, that little HTML pop-up that you get when you go onto a dealer site and it says, this website wants to know your location. They're able to capture device level information as well as geolocation based on that technology as well. So technically 5, 2 of them are one and the same, cookie and universal ID. Universal ID is the replacement of cookie. Still to be seen what's going to occur when cookies go away on how strong that product is. But as it looks right now, I mean, it looks to have some advantages to it over cookies. But again, once cookies go away, that's when we're really going to be able to see what it can produce.
Amen. I'm going back probably I'm trying to think how long. It's at least 6 years ago. And there was a individual that was touting how great their product was. And I just go, that's great. I'm just curious, are you doing this all on cookies? Cookie based? He's like, oh, of course. I go, so what happens when they go away? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I love the fact that you're touting and pounding your chest from the rooftops and screaming from the rooftops. And you guys have done, that's probably like 7 years ago. And they had not even thought, oh, cookies are going on. I'm like, actually, it's been talked about. The fact that you guys aren't doing anything about that is really big. And when we say cookies, people, I want to take this down just a little bit, that there's different types of cookies. Like there's the first party cookies, there's a second party and third party. So when you say that cookies are going away, do you want to expand on that just so the audience understands?
Third party cookies are really where most of the deprecation is going to occur. First party cookies, so essentially when the domain owner is cookieing an individual, that's going to be there to stay. They can't really necessarily take that away too much. But third party cookies is where the deprecation is going to occur. Here, we like to say cookies are for milk, not for tracking people, but that's just our
Agreed.
tagline.
I agree. Needs to be a t-shirt.
We actually have them, Brooke. I'll send you one.
I love it. Oh, I love it. Okay, so
No,
we took we
I
cut
will openly say I believe our technology is far superior than all of them, but I might be just slightly biased there.
you might be from what I have seen, it's pretty damn good. Like, I'm not easily impressed just because everyone over no, not everyone. A lot of technology out there and services and tools overpromise or they think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread and then it's not. I remember sitting with you and I just go, "Hold up. Run the by me one more time. You can see what?" And they think this whole thing started with actually Kendall was saying, he was talking about M1 data and Dan Moore, and I go, hold, so you guys can track this and this. Like I knew the technology's out there. I didn't know anyone was actually doing it in our industry. So I was just like, holy shit, this is incredible. So I will second that. I've yet to see anyone that comes close to the massive scope that you all have. It's pretty remarkable.
Well, we appreciate the compliment.
Yes. Okay. So now a dealership has access to all their consumer data from their website traffic. What are the most effective strategies they can employ to use the information to their advantage in terms of sales and customer relationship management?
So I think it starts first with business and market intelligence. Who are your vendors driving to your website? How engaged are the consumers that are getting to your website? The technology that we have with Smart Pixels, an amazing technology, and any web de-anonymization tool is a great technology. But the downfall where no matter what technology you use or what the company is, the one downfall that we have in the industry is none of us actually drive that traffic to the website. So while I hate to say it, it's shit in, shit out, gold in,
Mhm.
gold out. We're simply de-anonymizing who's on your website. And if that's a person that, has, purchasability, is truly in market, then obviously it's really easy to bring them down funnel, into, transitioning from online to offline and physically appearing at the store, setting an appointment, so on and so forth. So I think that dealers, or more specifically, the agencies that are actioning on this data, need to, look at the data, disseminate what an individual is, looking at from a VDP standpoint, and really honing in and catering whatever I would refer to as the next best message to whatever their web experience is. So, with our product, and I can't or don't want to speak to others, we have the traditional, what I call Google Analytics qualifications, time on site page views, but then we have an additional thing called triggers. And our triggers go into income based parameters that you can compare what model they're shopping with based upon their income. So, from an affordability standpoint, we put in inferred credit rank. While it's not a FICO, think of it more as something similar to a Credit Karma model to derive a credit score, understanding what their financeability is. We output currently garaged information on our output, as well as what vehicle we most likely believe that they would trade in. So I believe a combination of what their website experience is, as well as the ancillary data that we're issuing and output to either the agency or the dealer, and using that information to derive what the next best message is on a one-to-one personal basis, is the best chance for success in order to bring them down funnel.
I Everything about them. I'm hoping that everyone's paying attention. If not, just hit the little rewind button, go back there. Because once you have that, because there's companies out there like, oh, we'll take your data, but what are you doing with it? I mean,
Yep.
it's some of the examples, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the example I like to give, and I think I actually stole this from Kendall, so thank you, Kendall, is, hey, I can see their shop that they go to Lifetime versus another gym. Oh, they're drinking Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts or a local shop. Well, how you interact with that consumer now is completely different. You can offer them that gift card there, or just knowing that the lifestyle of how they interact. Hey, they've driven past our lot and went to the competitor site. What the heck? Like, we probably should be targeting them. Things like that to see how many more or less that, what are we doing with this? And so it's just taking it one step further. Like, I know there's so much talk about CDPs right now, and this to me is, you have so much more data with it. And I know we throw around the word data or data all the time. That being said, What are you doing with it? I mean, that just goes back to the consumer data being gold, right? So my next question is going to be is how can dealerships balance the collection and utilizations of the data while respecting the consumer's privacy and adhering to data protection regulations?
Oh, I don't like this question. So I don't like this question for a couple of different reasons. One, the answer to that is a CDP. Downfall to that is I am not aware, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I am not aware of a data and compliance first that exists in the marketplace. There are CDPs in the automotive arena that were kind of one program that migrated into, the this year's keyword or the last 2 years keyword of CDP. I think that if there's someone out there developing or someone out there starts to develop a data and data privacy compliance first CDP, they will run the gamut in the automotive industry or any industry for that matter. Understanding that car dealerships are now more viewed as financial institutions, that they now fall under Graham Leach Bliley, they fall under fair credit reporting, and then you, on top of that, you have all of the state level restrictions around what is considered personal information versus sensitive personal information. You have companies out there like Comply Auto that are truly dealer driven for dealers for data and compliance. I think if somebody were to build a CDP and have an integration with a company like Comply Auto for the compliance stuff, then it would be fantastic. But right now, when you look at, there's 6 states out there where if a consumer puts in a request to know, you have to be able to tell that consumer every data piece that you have on them, who's touched it, what they've touched it for, where's it gone, every vendor along the way. And the way the automotive arena operates today is DMS polling, whether it's, Fortellis or Reynolds or Dealer Vault or whatever have you, that marketing agency or whoever's polling gets that data and there's zero tracking after that. So it's definitely a data security, data compliance, probably consumer nightmare. And none of those CDPs really, or at least again, I want to be clear that I haven't seen it. And if you have one, please contact me. I beg you to contact me. I have tons of clients I can give you. So thinking about that, it's tongue in cheek when I answer you because I'm like, hey, CDP, because the CDP can control where data goes, whether it's DMS data or CRM data. But without that privacy and compliance involvement in it and knowing who's accessing that dealer's data and what its use is for, I kind of don't want to say CDP, but it's just as bad as polling. So it's really a tongue in cheek answer because I don't think what you're asking me actually exists today. But again, if you have it, please reach out to me.
Well, I think taking it even a little bit further on this is the way that our auto industry is right now. We love this industry. You all know I love this industry very much. We're also about 20 years behind the times. So we're still using ADF XML. Well, that's not secure at all. And so that right there violates the GLBA.
You
Additionally,
can send secure email. So there's a way to do ADF XML.
into the CRM, because it's such an email listener.
Yep. Mhm.
We're going to have to
There's a
talk
way
off.
to do it.
Okay.
I'm not giving out any tips and tricks. I'm
No, you're
not.
not. But I will offline. We're not public facing. We're gonna have a little chat about this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But to take it and looking at that and knowing, okay, technically how the law is written is that
Mhm.
you, to your point, you have to tell on your website if you submit a lead, where is this going? If you're on Auto Trader, a third party, who is going to have access to every piece of information? Because or the OEM site, same thing. It's not just going to dealership. We all know that.
Yep.
It's going to multiple dealerships, then it's going to their other whatever CDP they're using, if they're using one, then it's going somewhere else. Then they're going to probably shop that list, then they're going to retarget that list. And I just don't know that we're going to get to a point that all dealerships will be 100% compliant. Like it's going to take a while for us to get there, in my opinion, from what I've seen.
Well, it's going to take a while for somebody to build it. I mean,
Yeah.
if I was to tell you what I think the development roadmap would be to build a data and compliance first CDP, I'd tell you it's 2 years. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you're one of the, obviously, if you're a Cox division that, has an endless piggy bank, yeah, I mean, you put 10 guys on it and probably knock it out in 8 months, but from a startup perspective, starting from the ground up, doing the discovery, doing the scrum, intimately understanding all of the different laws that you need to abide by. And then there's other laws, like there's the Vermont Data Brokers Act,
Mhm.
which technically, with marketing companies coming in and touching that data, technically the dealer should be signed up for the Vermont Data Brokers Act. So it goes beyond privacy and compliance laws. It gets into those little state by state nuance laws where you should register, and registering in the state of California under CPRA and doing the guidelines, filling out those forms every single year. You know, if again, if somebody does a CDP that is data and compliance first, integrates all those documents, has the reminders of when you need to renew for each state, when it's going to expire, what laws need to be abided, what is, sensitive. You had talked about location and driving past a dealer or going to a coffee shop. There's 6 states out there that have sensitive PII laws
Mhm.
in the location area, which we play in just as much as we play in, probably more so than we play in web de-anonymization. Each law is different, that when a consumer raises their hand, how far, or the proximity measurements in which, once they raise their hand that say they don't want their sensitive PII shared, what is the area of distance that we can use for proximity? All 6 are different.
Mhm.
So just understanding all of that, understanding the inbound data that a dealer would take in, because a CDP is going to be marketing data, DMS data, CRM data, postal manifests, anything that they touch, whether it be their own data or from a conquest perspective. So it's understanding the gamut of all of those nuances and in the laws, and then putting it into a system that allows marketers to come in, grab data, use data, whether it's internal BDC, third party BDC, direct mail house, digital, OTT, connected TV, and understanding everyone else who's touching that data as well. Because you can hire 2 different companies for OTT and streaming TV. They're going to 2 different networks. So 2 different networks are
Mhm.
also touching that data. And technically that needs to be disclosed. We could literally spend 4 hours on this.
Uh, that's also why I just did another GLBA episode, FTC compliance, a couple weeks ago, and that's, I think, the 6th one I've done this year, and I did one the prior year. So it's just like, yeah, 100%, like, we could just keep
Yep.
talking about this, but we'd have to switch to whatever is in our cup right now. Like, I'm gonna have to switch to vodka. Yours is, I'm sure, Basil Hayden at this point, so we'd have
No,
to switch
no,
it.
no. It's water for now.
I do
Anyone
have water,
watching
but
who
I'd
knows
have
me
to
is
switch.
probably surprised it's not brown water, but that's fine.
Exactly. All right, so let's shift gears just a little bit. So
All
we
right.
talked about the data, and then we kind of touched on this, but how do dealerships then transfer all this raw data that they have, that they probably don't know what to do with it? It's just sitting there, collecting from online interactions and all this, but how do they turn that into actionable insights about consumer preferences and their behaviors?
Unfortunately, it's the same answer as CDP, but none of them are doing it either. So, again, that's why compliance is, so important to interact with a CDP. It is specifically what you just said. Who can you call? Who can you SMS, text message? Who can you email? Who can you direct mail? I guarantee you I could take any dealer's DMS and just run it through national change of address, and 30% of the file is going to be bad.
Least.
You know, that's the other thing. You get into data hygiene within a CDP and postal compliance and all of that other stuff, which is another 2-hour conversation. But unfortunately, it's the same answer. I mean, CDP is the route to go. The question is, who's going to be to market first with a truly data and compliance driven CDP? And I'm sure somebody's out there doing it. I haven't met them yet.
And I'm curious in the answer to that, because like I know I take a lot of demos and look and see, okay, what's the greatest product out there? And the one I have in my head right now, I've been told over and over that they're compliant first. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut on this one. And I
Okay.
want to know if someone reaches out to you and tells you, and then we can actually investigate it together, because
Okay.
yeah, it's a big problem. I mean, compliance in general. So,
Yep.
and it's one thing additionally is that, and I've talked about this numerous times, I'm going to repeat myself, even if there's an integration and they're doing everything the way they're supposed to, or as much as they can, that push pull integration is massive. They'll push, but they can't, or whatever, but they'll only go one direction,
Yeah,
but
they
they can't
pull, you
go.
can't push. So, like, you can
Exactly.
pull DMS, but very few. I mean, Fortellis is probably one of the only really good ones that you can actually push data back into, but you can't alter existing data. You can just
Mhm.
essentially create a duplicate of that record, and then that just becomes a messy database for the dealer. So, with a CDP, you have, there's a lot more that you can do as far as cleansing of data and essentially rewriting a record with the same record ID within that database in order to maintain your hygiene, fresh email appends, update, fresh phone numbers without having to do quote unquote traditional data entry, through your BDC.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So we're an industry, it's a little bit traditional at times. Let's be honest. Sometimes things are very slow moving. Some things not so much. I got to ask, what sparked the shift towards embracing data and technology? Would you say?
I just think time, change, technology, the fact that, most people in the automotive industry, we were all told in elementary and high school that we never walk around with a calculator in our pocket. Well, everybody walks around with a camera, a calculator, and everything else. So I think just the progression of technology. I mean, when you look at technology in the mid 2000s and you fast forward 15, 20 years later, almost, technology has moved light years. Data, they say, is the new oil, so to speak. When market share is becoming harder and harder to gain more of, you have to be more diligent to the consumer and, really drive impulse, with your message, to get them to look at your brand or to look at your store. And that's automotive or anything these days, to be honest with you.
Yeah, agreed. So if I think personalization, like most, we're going to think Amazon. Like that's usually the first thing that come to mind. Everything's personalized for me. It's great. But there's also, I know we just talked about privacy, but my question is, how do you strike a balance between the two? Because yeah, do I want the personalized stuff sent to me? Yes, I do. Do I want to, if I'm a business, want to know that, hey, someone's on my website right now, or hey, they just looked at something and I want to strike with iron hot? Yeah, of course. But there's also a way to go about this so that it's not freaky, because the technology that's out there it's pretty crazy and it's awesome. It's also, if that's not handled correctly, you're in deep shit. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. But
Well,
I'll let you take on it.
I mean, again, you got to be consumer first. I mean, yes, I mean, the technology stuff that we do here is creepy, whether it's the web de-anonymization or the location stuff. Now, obviously, we hold a delay on some of that data. So I believe with the web de-anonymization, we're the fastest to disclose PII. We do it every 8 minutes. And, it's a self-service platform API. So you can get, near real time. I believe 8 minutes is near real time. On the location side, we're a lot longer. We hold data for 18 hours at bare minimum before we make it available, to try and remove some of that creepiness, or that, when we first launched Smart Pixel back in 2015, it was real time. And unfortunately, sales guys, they're going to go as fast as they can. And I mean, they would just sit there and refresh the platform. And as soon as somebody was on it with a phone number, I mean, we actually, probably shouldn't say this, but we actually bought a consumer a vehicle because we had a salesperson that was on the program contact a consumer while they were on a website comparing two vehicles, and just said, "How do I get you in the test drive?" And she
Awesome.
got freaked out. And obviously she reached out to an attorney. And, while we could have proof of, we have proof of opt-in, proof of all, legal compliance, we kind of just looked at each other and said, how much is it going to cost to prove we're right? It was a lot cheaper to buy her a car than it was to prove we were right. Uh,
You get a car. You get a car.
and instantaneously the next day we put a delay, as well as we removed phone number from output, so that at least they have to go to a third party to get a phone number now. And it, kind of like a Chinese wall type situation for us. So yeah, I can't say her name, but I really hope that back in 2016 you really enjoyed that brand new Honda Accord we bought you.
You better drive the hell out of that vehicle.
That story still doesn't resonate well for me, but at the same time, while it doesn't resonate well, it does at the same time, because there could have never been a better use case that proved how well the technology worked to get a consumer on the phone while they were in that middle of that shopping experience. And as creepy as it was, we did identify the right individual with the right phone number, with the right garage data, with exactly what she was looking at from a BDP perspective. So it was a really expensive use case, not one that I ever want to
Don't want to
repeat.
repeat that one.
But as bad as it was, kind of a good thing. And
Oh,
hats off to the dealer, because he didn't knock our head off. He was very polite on the steeply discounted vehicle we purchased.
that's good. That's good. Okay, so if someone's thinking, okay, so ROI on all this technology advancement, well, did I have to buy a car for someone? Did it work? Like in your mind, what is the ROI? How do you measure the ROI and all this incredible technology?
That's always going to be the question. I think the ROI comes from, it's a combination of things, to be completely honest with you. One, having the data available, understanding the data, delivering the next best message, and then servicing the consumer. So I think it's more than just a technology to an advertisement and just hope it works. So I guess the best way to summarize that is understanding what the consumer's actually looking at, catering a proper message to that individual. I'm a true believer in omni-channel marketing, so I don't think that you should just send Betty an email or send Betty a postcard. I think you need to hit Betty probably with an email, depending on her engagement. Maybe you hit her with a postcard, hit her with some digital, whether that's social or traditional display or OTT or connected TV. But as someone who de-anonymizes web traffic, I can see the same consumer being hit by 5, 7, 10 different vendors while they're in that funnel. And all of them are pushing Betty down funnel, not just one of them, not just one message. Okay. And it's kind of a timing thing. Okay. And sometimes it's pure luck and sometimes it's data driven. So I don't know that there's necessarily a foolproof way to say, this is how you get the best ROI, but I don't think it's a singular message. I don't think it's a singular vendor. I think that, there's reasons that you should have paid search. I think there's reasons that you should have social. I think there's reasons that you should do display or connected TV or email or having your BDC center reach out to them if you have a prior existing relationship. So again, I just don't think there's a perfect path, but I believe that you need to understand what the consumer's looking at and essentially walk them down funnel.
Yeah. Yes. I'm just gonna say yes to all that. And it's so true what you're saying. And once again, if this is new to you listening or watching, go back and rewind this, listen to it a little bit more. There's just a lot of information that can be taken from here and to put into your daily life, your daily work life, and to improve the consumer journey. It's so vital to I'm not gonna say be ahead of the curve because this has been around for a while. In our
Yeah.
industry, it's fairly new-ish, we'll say, but there's so much more you could be doing and having that better experience for the consumer, which at the end of the day is what they want. I mean, damn, Amazon is not the cheapest. I mean, sometimes it is, but overall,
Well,
you're
I
paying for
mean,
the convenience.
no, I mean, you can do custom audiences into Amazon. I mean, we
Yep.
have probably 3 or 4 different marketers that do enough volume that actually have a seat at Amazon, and they do custom audiences. And when you do custom audiences, not only can you leverage the custom audience data, but then you have the ability to overlay Amazon shopping attributes on top
Mhm.
of your custom audience. So I've seen vendors have tremendous success with Amazon, but we've also seen, just as many have tremendous success on everything else. I mean, even Google using the DV360 platform and uploading a custom audience instead of just using a run of the mill, data file that, has been sitting up there in some DMP that you just randomly grab because it's got a great marketing line on it. You're like, oh, that's my audience. But, if you were to, now obviously you have a data cost behind that. So one could argue, expense. But if you have a custom audience and using Amazon as your example, and then you can overlay Amazon shopping habits, your engagement off of that audience is going to be significantly higher than your run of the mill display audience.
Amen. That's to me, when I was first introduced, it was through Cognition, their Amazon, and I just go, so let me just get this straight. You can do, I mean, whether it's there's so much with that portion. And to our point of what we're saying here is that you don't just do one, like figure
Yep.
out what is the best mix for you. What is your budget? Maybe you can't add Amazon. If you can, that's great, but please make sure you're with a company that actually can do it and doesn't just say they can. If it's, hey, we're only going to do SEO. Okay. You're going to miss out on paid search, but maybe your strategy is such that that's not in the cards. Okay. No problem. Just figure out what works best with you and understand what does success look like to you. And are you achieving that? Do I need to back it off and move it over to another channel for a little bit? And I wouldn't do the whole budget, but I do a portion of the budget and see, okay, how's it working? If it's working, great. Go for another 30 days and see how it is. Do another 60 days. And if it works again, I'll probably move all your budget over there at that point, but don't just jump ship because you feel like it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
So taking this a little bit further on, I want to ask in your experience, what are some, I'll say, innovative ways dealers are customizing their services for different market segments?
I don't think any of them are doing it really well. Some agencies are out there doing it well. Obviously, you're seeing a lot of quote unquote AI, driven alternatives, whether it be a chatbot or things of that nature. I've seen chatbots that start with AI to try and engage the consumer. And as soon as the consumer responds with anything, it's immediately a live transfer to a sales rep. And then the sales rep essentially takes over from there. AI is great. It's still very much at its infancy, but I mean, if you want to test this for yourself, go on a car dealership's website, let the chatbot engage you and just say, what are your business hours? And it's just going to give you the run of the mill business hours. But if an individual would say, what are your business hours? And that immediately went to a sales rep. Well, our general hours are, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Oh, well, I get out of work at 8:30. If I get there at 9:10, I'm ready to buy a vehicle. Are you still going to be there? The sales rep's going to sit there and wait, where the chatbot's not going to give you that interaction. So I think some bits of AI still have a ways to go. But some of it's great. Some of the conversational AI stuff is enough to get that consumer engaged, or at least get the information out of them. I think dealers need to treat their website more like their showroom floor. The way that most dealers treat their website is the equivalent of having a showroom and no sales reps. So you wouldn't open up your showroom and not have sales guys on it. So why do you treat your website that way, especially in today's world with, as prevalent as digital is, you go back 7 years and it used to be the average individual visited 3 to 4 lots to buy a car. It's 1.7 now. And we see that in our location technology and can validate that. So if that's been cut in half, your opportunities have been cut in half. So why wouldn't you treat your website just like as an extension of your showroom? Get your sales folks involved in, when somebody starts to respond to that chat, you know, get them to respond. They're sitting around twiddling their thumbs, drinking coffee anyway. So
Facebook, Twitter, chat, yeah,
I wasn't
TikTok.
going to go that far, but
Oh, believe me, I've been there. So I think we both have. No,
no,
yes.
I think, to me, your website is an extension of your showroom floor. So why isn't it being treated to the same degree as the showroom floor?
Amen. I've had that conversation. That would be a drinking game for sure would be. I go, wait, so you have whether it's a phone calls coming in
Hmm.
and you guys, when you don't answer them and then don't respond back to them anyway, that is, let's say you're getting 1,000 calls a day. That's great. Fantastic. That means you have 1,000 people on your lot right now. And you're just telling them, you know what? We're okay. We don't need your business. Just go away. And the
Yep.
same thing with any lead that comes, and I hate the word lead. I'll say any opportunity that comes from a digital platform is an opportunity to sell a vehicle. So how are you treating that? Are you just generic to everything, or hey, we can't afford more people?
Yep.
But I don't think you can't afford to have more people. I was a double negative there, but yeah, I'm like, and the grammar, like I just literally twitched. I'm like, that's bad grammar. But the point is that it, what is your in-house people, the process, everything before you add another piece of product and technology? Understand that okay, this needs to enhance those two.
Yep.
100% does. But that's a little bit of a hot button on my end as well there. So let's go to predictive analytics.
Mm,
Now, maybe
okay.
not so much in our industry, it's a buzzword, but it's definitely out there. So how is this being used to
80s buzzword.
yeah, yes.
Predictive analytics. I mean, AI is like the new buzzword for what predictive
Yep.
analytics is. It's essentially the same thing. Obviously, technology's progressed, but I mean, predictive analytics is a 80s, 90s, term technically. So I wouldn't call it a new buzzword.
It's not, but I feel like it's just starting to come into
Well,
our
vintage is
but
coming back around,
that's
90s.
true. I mean, Goodwill is just down the street from me, so ask Macklemore about it. He'll tell you all about it.
Yeah.
So whether it's the AI and I've had some let's actually just tell the AI story real quickly. So was on a website and I'd heard that you could do this and more or less because it's AI. And if you don't have those guardrails in place, it's going to do whatever the hell it wants to do. So we
Yep.
just said, hey, I can see on your website on KBB that my car is worth $30,000.
Yep.
And what's the outdoor price of XYZ model, your make model? And the chat came back with the AI and gave us exactly what our out the door pricing was without ever looking at the car, without verifying anything about us. But now in writing, we have, okay, this is what the car's worth. This is what I get this out the door pricing. I've also seen some just craziness of people taking screenshots of AI of things it said because there weren't guardrails in place. So anyone that knows me knows I'm a huge advocate of AI, but understand that you are the human in the situation. Understand, hey, what are we doing to enhance? And is there something, just please put those guardrails in place. Like, please put the guardrails in place. But I go back to my original question here is how can this AI, the analytics, everything in between be used to anticipate the consumer's needs in our automotive world?
Lots of data. So AI is driven by data. So the more data you put in, the smarter the AI is going to be. And in theory, the more guardrails that you're putting up. But then we're right back to the dirty data situation. So
Mhm.
you need to make sure that data is clean so that you get the right information. I had brought up if were just to process a dealer's DMS file through national change of address, I'd lose 30% of that file. Well, if you're doing any form of analytics to try and determine, if you're going to heat map your DMS and say, okay, where am I getting the most, sales on a zip code basis? Well, if I knock out 30% of that data, it's going to change what the analytics look like. So the cleanliness of the data going into AI, I think there's a really good place for it. I think AI's too much still in its infancy per se of what its true capabilities are. I'm 10 million% in line with you on the guardrails. My biggest fear with AI, and it's just, you see it in society where people read a headline and then don't actually read the story and just take
Nope.
it for what it's worth. Well, AI is the same exact thing. Are people just going to put things in AI? AI is going to spit out a result. They're not going to proofread it and just say,
Mm-mm.
okay, this is what it is. And is it right? Is it wrong? Or are they just going to believe it? So that's my biggest fear when you just look at society in general. But once those guardrails are in place, I think there's a massive use for it. I mean, again, conversational AI to be an extension of your showroom floor to engage a consumer to then immediately hand off to a real person, I think is probably the next best thing to happen in the automotive industry. And I'm sure somebody's going to do it right. Whether it's digital dealer, NADA, NIADA, or any other
Choose an acronym.
any other acronym automotive, you're starting to see more and more AI companies. Now, the downfall is as a tech, as a developer, as a coder, you talk to some of these companies and you're like, that's not AI. That's more if
Mm-mm.
this, then that logic than it
Yep.
is anything else. So it's going to be interesting to see where it leads. I would venture to say we're probably a year to 2 years out or late Q1, early Q2 2025 to really see where AI will maximize for a dealer and
Mhm.
what's the best way to use it, in my personal opinion. I'd love to see it happen faster. I just don't know that there's enough people out there. I mean, when you think about the tech side and the brains behind AI, and then the brains for actually inside the dealership and marrying the two of those together and figuring out where it works the best. Again, I just think we're at an infancy standpoint on it.
Yes, like what's interesting to me is that 2023 happens, right? And all of a sudden ChatGPT comes about and people lose their mind. And I love it, but AI has been around for a really long time. It's just now it's starting to make a
Publicly acceptable.
big splash into it. And that so as I would go through and say, okay, what AI is best for what I do? I'd buy a product and I quickly learned to stop buying the damn year-long contract because the minute within like a month of me buying it, they're like, "Oh, here's a new product and this one's much greater." I was like, "God damn it, what am I doing?" And it's outdated. And so when you say it's in its infancy, like this is an infant. It's like what is it, Baby Jack on the Disney? What is it, Incredibles?
Yep.
It's like one of those because this baby is very powerful and the baby is changing every freaking 2 seconds. So just be very mindful as you go about doing this that you're keeping up with the latest, that you do diligence to understand. Okay, do we really want to learn from my mistakes and don't buy the year long subscription to it because you probably don't need it and just go month to month and pay the extra because in probably 30 days there's gonna be a brand new product that's way better.
Well,
So,
not only that, but I understand what AI tool you're using. So,
oh gosh,
ChatGPT doesn't necessarily connect to the internet. Bard connects to the internet. Google just, released theirs, and there's a bunch of
lied about it.
true AI guys saying, do it in real time and we'll believe you because nothing you did was actual real time. So, there's nuances. I try and, I used to read for an hour in the morning and an hour at night. And now I play with, ChatGPT or Bard for an hour and I read for an hour. So, I've been playing with it. I actually had ChatGPT write a book for me that I'm in the process of proofreading, which has nothing to do with data or technology.
But it has to do with AI, so it's fine.
No, it's a book on overthinking, believe it or not.
Oh, nice.
I had a friend of mine that was, going through an episode and overthinking, and I used a scenario to try and put their mind at bay. And when I used the scenario, it clicked. So then I took that scenario and I put it in Chat GPT, and it actually wrote a really nice book. I'm in the process of reading it and proofreading and everything like that. So I'll let you know if I get a publishing deal or not.
Oh, I'm very excited to know about this. Like I have had you and we talk. I don't know if it was before the show or during the show. At this point, I don't remember. Is that we both do a lot of speaking engagements, whether it's on a podcast, whether it's up in front of the crowd, whatever it may be. And sometimes the turnaround is a little too quick to write a brand new speech. So I have done multiple speeches that I gave it what I needed it to say, and then was it still was it was time consuming to put all that data in there to understand, no, it needs to be in my language. This is what I want to say. But then from there, it's just like it is having the ultimate professor look at it and say, no, let's change this word. Don't use this word. And so
Yep.
it really is just tweaking it. But once we go back to is that we're the human in the situation. But yeah, there's been multiple speeches that I've done that after a lot of massaging that it wrote it for me.
I
And I am
I
ever
I
grateful
just
for
I put down 5 bullet points and I just wing it when I talk, so
it.
I think I
I
told you, I you sent me a few topics, I'm like, "Yeah, short, no, short, yeah, alright, let's go."
it's more natural that way. It depends on the situation. Like if I'm up presenting, it's a little different because I'm the same thing. I don't want to read from something. I just want to.
Well, I mean, if you have a screen behind you and you're displaying infographics and stuff like that, then obviously there's a lot more planning that goes into it, depending on the level of speaking engagement. I'm right there with you, but I try my best to wing it rather than to have that quote unquote scripting nature. Just go with the flow of, whomever's listening.
I agree. I agree. It's way more natural when you're able to just speak versus for those that were back on the episode with Damien. I just introduced a teleprompter, and it was. He just goes, man, he goes, you're not yourself. You're so robotic. And I go, that here, I actually have the reason for that one. So I've learned since then, if I'm going to use it to one, almost have it memorized so I can be able to go through what is the opening, whatever it may be. It makes such a difference when you're at ease, to say the least, up here. So let's go with before we wrap up here is the feedback loop here. And the customer feedback loop is really important. So how important is this to refining data strategies?
I think it's ridiculously important. I'm not going to name drop a company, but there was a company that had a program called SIT, SIT.
Mm.
Essentially, it was and this was used in RV and power sports, not necessarily automotive. I think they did a couple of automotive things, but mainly used in RV and power sports. And what they would do is they would reach out to consumers who booked an appointment, showed up for an appointment, and didn't buy. And the results on the feedback from customers that didn't buy were absolutely astounding to me, and probably astounding for any business owner. I mean, there simple things that, I didn't like the way that the salesperson I interacted with was dressed, to I didn't like the way the salesperson that I interacted with looked at my wife. I didn't like how they treated my dog. And it was amazing to see the Karen level of complaints, if you will. It was those little nuances, or, when I walked into the showroom, it took 5 minutes for someone to greet me. So I just figured I wasn't worth their time. But the reality is, I mean, unfortunately, those people are out there. And it was, that kind of was my first true interaction with true consumer feedback, and how important those small details were. Once you do all of that to get them into your dealership, and then something that small ruined it. So I think feedback loops are ridiculously important. I think dealers should invest a lot more in those individuals who filled out a lead, took the time to come to the dealer and didn't buy. Find out why. For most of them are probably going to be a used car buyer rather than a new car buyer. And they inquired about one vehicle and, made an appointment 36 hours later. And in that time, the used vehicle was sold. Maybe they thought it was a bait and switch opportunity, or, it was published on the internet at one price, but the sales guy was trying to get uber aggressive, or the F&I guy was trying trying to get uber aggressive and oversell packages. I mean, it could be a ton of different things in the dealer. There's 10,000 moving parts in a dealership. But I think that I, I don't think it's on enough people's radar that you've spent all those marketing dollars. I mean, a dealer attributes what, $500-600 per car is what essentially it costs them to get somebody to buy that car. Well, if you had somebody interested in buying that car and they didn't buy, what's $5 more to figure out why, and then incorporate that as a feedback loop. So that was, again, first time I got to see true consumer feedback loop, and I was sold at that point that the level of importance for it, and how just the automotive industry just doesn't care. I hate to say it that way, but I mean, hey, speaking of another CDP idea, compliance and feedback,
We're just throwing them out there, everyone. Like, just take us up on this, please.
I'll help you. We'll work out a consulting engagement. I think it's incredibly important. I don't really see anybody in the automotive industry. Like I said, this is predominantly RV and power sports that I saw it in. Obviously, those are a little bit more quote unquote luxury, not need to have type items. So, the people might be a little bit more delicate, to be polite.
Politically correct. We're good.
I'm trying here.
Brooke, I can't hold on much longer. Come on.
Well, we're just lucky there isn't brown water in here. So
or not good mine.
I think it's incredibly important. I just don't see it being utilized in the automotive arena. And again, I could just be wrong. I mean, listen, I'm busy. I interact. I mean, Brooke, you've seen me, and anybody that knows me sees me. I always run an open bar tab. I invite everybody up. I try and network and introduce people to my network. I try and meet new people. I don't sit there and pound my chest and say, oh, I have the best product, screw everybody else. I want to learn. I want somebody to tell me that there's something wrong with my product, and I want to figure out what it is, because that's what makes us better. I don't want to have ego involved in it. So, if there's a way I can help, a company or a CDP that doesn't understand the compliance side or the feedback loop side, I would love to help. I think the industry needs it. I think it'll change the industry for the better.
Amen to that one. And he's 100% telling the truth that he will help out any way he can. He's going to be at a conference, or as we're going to get into in just a second here, that you can get in touch with him just about anywhere. So with that though, Greg, it is time for lightning round portion of Facts Not Feelings here. So first and foremost, for those that are watching, you've got his little QR code. QR code's actually like right there. Go ahead and scan that. It's going to be in the show notes as well, description. You can find him anywhere that he is at this point. But for those that are listening in podcast land, Gregory, how can they get in touch with you? How can they find you?
m1-data.com, m1data.com, phone number 954-776-1197, extension 202, or if you ring that line, I'm going to be honest with you, the chances of me answering are slim. Dial 0.
I am the operator.
Please get the receptionist. No, so one of the greatest things about M1 is our shortest tenured employee here is 6 years. So they're not just myself. Virtually anyone in this office can speak to data technology almost just as well as I can. Obviously, I can get a little bit deeper into the weeds, but you can speak to anyone at M1 Data. Fill out a form on our website. There's Calendly links where you can just book an appointment online. Any means, I don't care. Call my cell phone. It doesn't matter to me. So reach out to us by any means. Connect with us on LinkedIn. Feel free to ask questions. You could raise your hand and say, listen, I have no intention of buying something. I just want to further educate myself. Do you have 15, 30 minutes to get on the phone so that I can, better understand the technology or better understand the product offerings? For you, this is what I'm going to do. Anybody that comes from Brooke's show, okay, I will give you 2 weeks to test any product you want. Absolutely zero charge.
Holy shnikes. Okay. That's massive. Holy crap. I want to take part of this. This is amazing.
Proof is in the pudding. Okay. We're a data company. We're extremely confident in what we do. And we want to make sure that our products work for the people that are utilizing them, whether they're a dealership, whether they're an agency, whether they're a broker or reseller. We want to make sure that our product's a good fit for you. So if you want to test our products, we'll let you test any product that we have 2 weeks for free to make sure it's a good fit for your business or for your dealership.
I don't know if people understand what a massive opportunity that is. Your technology is so incredible. Be able to test out for 2 weeks. There's not a lot of other companies are doing trials anymore. It's, it's you got to put your credit card in, whatever it may be. So this is, please take them up on this. And as yeah, this is a big one, ladies and gentlemen. Very
On the
big one.
website feedback loops, if it doesn't work for you, please reach out to me and I want to know
Yes.
why.
Exactly. And that's going back to the whole keeping your ego, putting it aside to understand like, hey, I'm gonna be wrong at some point.
Oh,
Hasn't
of
happened
course.
quite yet, but at some point,
No, I've definitely been wrong. I've been wrong a lot. I'm
it
really
was
good
too
at
good to pass up.
really good at failing, but as they say,
Yes.
fail fast and recover. So
Yes, very true. Okay, let's get into the name of the show is Facts Not Feelings. So whether it's in personal life or it's in your professional life, how are you distinguishing facts from feelings?
just being honest with myself. I mean, as I said, I don't have ego. I don't have pride. I'm not too prideful. I constantly want to learn. I'm not the end all be all. Most of the people that know me, or if they introduce me to you, they're going to tell you how smart I was and how you started the show. But I don't know everything. I don't know all of the intricacy, whatever that word is.
Intricacies?
There you go.
I gotta see. They're like, is that how I say it?
I don't know all the nuances, all the intricacies of everything across every industry. I always want to learn. I'm open to new ideas. They say there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's multiple ways to de-anonymize website traffic. There's multiple ways to do location data. So, I always want to learn. So it's really easy for me on the facts not feelings thing. If you ask my business partner, Russell, he'll tell you I lack empathy, because I'm just like, okay, well, it happened. Let's move on. That's how you solve the problem. I don't know that I necessarily lack empathy. I think I'm acceptance of accountability is really where I'm at.
I understand 100% on that one. I'm very similar. Okay, so I saw this answer and I just got to ask you. So it's such a great answer. Is what is something that most people wouldn't know about you?
Well, I know where you're going with this.
And he's like, I'm just gonna tease but not really say anything.
I am a former world champion race car driver.
That's so freaking
So
cool.
that's well, and to be honest with you, anyone who's been on a Zoom call with me, so I was a company called In the News, and I was in a lot of magazines, cover magazines, and stuff like that back then when I was racing. And there's a couple of them on my wall that people can kind of make out if you're on a Zoom call with me, but you can tell that the people that have kind of like a hot rod or a race car interest, because they're able to point out, hey, what is that behind you? But yes, former world champion drag racer. Straight
So
line, quick and fast, get to the point.
it's kind of like your personality. I like it.
There you
What did you make the transition from that to? That's not a question I asked, but from that to what you're doing now?
Believe it or not, I did them at the same time.
Holy hell!
I actually had I had a full blown race operation. So big tractor trailer style RV, big 2-story trailer, the race car on top and whatnot. And instead of having a bedroom in the RV, I ripped out the bed and I converted it to an office.
Oh my!
Unfortunately, back then, I think, satellite internet we had then wasn't anything like Starlink at all. But, I essentially I worked from the road for the most part. I think we were a different company then too. We were predominantly a data aggregator at that point. This predates Smart Pixel, the location technology stuff. So most of the stuff we were doing then was just compiling data, making it available on our online system, selling to direct mail companies, email marketing companies, and things like that. So it wasn't, in 2014 was when we decided we were going to transition to, technology stack, as we believed that, the data industry was going to transition and we needed to fortify our business for the next 10 years. So, and, we're in the process of reinventing and new sets of technology stacks, just like we did back in 14. We've already started on that based on where technology has progressed. So we were a different company then. So it was a lot easier. I didn't, necessarily need to be hands-on with a product team, with a development team, with a data team like I am every day now.
Yeah, man. To do both at the same time, that is not an easy task. Especially given the Wi-Fi situation. So
You
I
know,
just
it
applaud that.
it sounds a lot harder. And again, I mean, like I said, I mean, we were a much different company then. I mean, to sell direct mail lists and email marketing lists, it doesn't really require, I mean, it's a lot of data hygiene and a lot of data maintenance, but that's just all database work, versus today and the technology that we deal with and just the sheer amounts of data that we take in on a daily basis. We take in, you know, I would say daily average is over 46 billion pieces of data a
That
day
is
is what we run
nuts.
through our office. So when you talk about just that sheer quantity, there's a lot more hands-on involvement on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, man.
Now I struggle juggling just doing the conventions. I mean, convention season from September to December just murders me.
Oh, like, this past year, I just go, "Okay, I've gotta make a change because I cannot do it just takes so much out of you." And so I'm like, "2024, we're gonna have to be a little bit more strategic." I mean, I think it was probably March through June-ish. I was gone, like, every week, every other week. It was nuts. I was like, "Oh, we need to maybe calm this down just a little bit here, Brooke. Just,
Well,
calm it down."
this past fall, it was 6 trips in 10 weeks all to Vegas.
Oh my
It was
god, that's
almost
a lot.
every other week or every week.
That's a lot of Vegas. That's too much Vegas.
Way too much
That's too
Vegas.
much. I just had
But,
like
that's where
it's
most of the conventions are, unfortunately, so
yeah, they are. All right, Greg, it has been such a pleasure having you show. Thank you so much for enlightening all of us. And this is such a, dealer consumer relationship is so vital. And that feedback loop we talked about, like all that is so vital to our success and progressing. So just thank you so much for being a part of this. And everyone, you know the drill at this point. Find a way to serve today. Find a way to just be the joy in someone's life, whether that is opening a car door or that is a kind smile, whatever it may be. Just do something to better someone's life today. And that, everyone, we will talk and see you all next week.